Forget alien planets, because everything you're about to see was created right here on Earth. Somewhere on this planet, nature built places so impossible, you might swear they belong to another world.
This is not AI, and it is not some distant planet either. This is Earth. Yet in some places, the skin of this planet has produced landforms that seem to quietly defy familiar logic. There are canyons carved by water into smooth, flowing curves that look like frozen waves. There are lakes hiding entire dead forests beneath their cold surfaces. Some of these landscapes were shaped by volcanoes. Others were sculpted by wind, water, ice, minerals, and millions of years of erosion. But standing in front of them, people still find themselves asking the same quiet question. How can Earth create landforms so strange and so extraordinary? Today on Africa Uncovered, we walk you through 30 of the most mysterious landforms on the planet, places where nature has built real wonders that feel almost impossible to exist. If you love stories like this, do us a quick favor before we dive in. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling us which landform blew your mind the most. Now, let's get into it. Standing alone on the frozen plateau north of Russia's Ural Mountains, the 7 giants of Manpupuner rise like ghostly figures, reaching up to 138 feet high. From a geological view, they are the hardest quartzite schist cores left behind after more than 200 million years of steady erosion. That process slowly shaped their strange, swollen tops and narrow bases, letting those stone pillars stand apart in a land that looks almost forgotten by time. When strong winds slip through the rock gaps, the long, whistling sound resembles human cries and turns the place into something that feels like it challenges reason. In Mansi mythology, these are 7 evil giants who were cursed and turned to stone forever by the sacred mountain Yelping Ner. The isolated pillar is believed to be the leading shaman, turning away in terror and leaving behind a legend on this plateau that is still told to this day. On the southwestern coast of Africa, the Namib Desert hides a mystery that has kept science debating for more than 50 years. It is the fairy circles, a strange network of round patches stretching for more than 2,000 kilometers, made of millions of circles arranged in an almost unbelievable hexagonal pattern. These circles do not touch or overlap. They leave bare patches of soil surrounded by grass rims that survive by quietly capturing moisture during the dry season. Each circle can appear on its own, expand out to about 12 meters, stay bare for 30 to 60 years, and then slowly fade back into the land. This phenomenon is so sensitive that it only shows up where annual rainfall stays between 50 and 100 millimeters. Why nature creates such precise geometry in the middle of the Namib Desert still remains a question without a single agreed answer. Do not think this is a painting, because Vinakunka is a mountain where brilliant bands of color are carved straight into the Earth's crust. Located at about 5,200 meters in the Andes of Peru, this multicolored wonder was covered by ice and snow for thousands of years and only became clearer as the climate slowly warmed. The red, yellow, blue, and other layers came from ancient sediments lifted to the surface by tectonic activity, with iron oxide, sulfur, and copper creating an unbelievable natural palette. The mountain's colors change constantly with the light, glowing softly under sunshine and fading quickly when fog sweeps across its face. Behind its surreal look sits a harsh environment of thin air and strong winds on exposed slopes. For the Quechua people, Vinakunka is an apu, a sacred mountain spirit that quietly protects life in the Andes. In the middle of Death Valley, rocks weighing up to 700 pounds slide across cracked ground and leave deep tracks stretching for hundreds of yards. Many stones also turn on their own or move in parallel lines as if guided by an invisible force across Racetrack Playa. Science explains this as an ice push phenomenon, when thin sheets of ice break apart and combine with light wind to move the rocks little by little. The paradox is that this precise freezing process appears inside one of the hottest places on Earth. In the legend of the Timbisha people, these wandering stones are the remains of a curse that once punished human greed. Standing in Racetrack, Playa, you will see the stones as if they have just awakened, somewhere between the laws of physics and ancient magic. Now you are looking at Geysir, the geothermal valley that gave the word Geysir to every erupting hot spring in the world. At its center sits Geysir, a geothermal giant that once blasted water columns up to about 170 meters high, but now remains in a mysterious, dormant state. The geysers in Geysir are strongly controlled by earthquakes because a single tremor can seal an active vent or awaken a pool that has been silent for centuries. In the vents that still erupt, water can be pulled downward and swell into a glossy turquoise dome for a brief instant right before the explosion. Some springs here also split into two contrasting sections, one clear and boiling, the other cold and cloudy blue because of minerals. Icelanders also use the hidden geothermal heat to bury pots of rye dough in hot mud and bake bread for 24 hours. In the harsh cold of Kazakhstan, the Kegen ice volcano rises as a strange ice tower, formed not from lava, but from warm water erupting onto the ground. This structure can reach about 14 meters in winter, when water from an underground spring meets air temperatures near -20 degrees Celsius and freezes into layered mounds. The whitest plume at the top is actually warm vapor rising and quickly condensing in the cold air, creating the image of an active volcanic vent. Beneath the ice shell sits a hollow chamber where the water keeps moving, so it never freezes completely. This phenomenon is often compared to a cryovolcano, a type of ice volcano recorded on Pluto and on distant moons. When summer arrives, the ice tower gradually melts and the surrounding area returns to a green grassland sustained by groundwater. Hidden beneath the Arizona desert, Antelope Canyon is the most photographed slot canyon in the world and is linked to a landscape photo once sold for $6.5 million United States dollars. From a distance, this place is almost invisible on the flat desert surface and only appears as a maze nearly 40 meters deep when you step close to the crack. The canyon's surreal wave-shaped walls were carved by flash floods, eroding sandstone over millions of years. Those same flash floods are also the greatest danger, because water can rush into the canyon even when the sky above stays completely sunny. The narrow rock passage constantly redirects light, creating bright vertical beams that appear only for a very short time. Visitors cannot enter freely because this is sacred Navajo land and must be accessed only with a local guide. Socotra is called the Forgotten Land because this island holds one of the strangest concentrations of endemic species in the world. Unlike many oceanic islands formed by volcanoes, Socotra is an ancient continental fragment that split away from the supercontinent Gondwana millions of years ago. Long isolation turned this place into a biological time capsule, where about 37% of plant species and 90% of reptile species exist nowhere else on Earth. Across the dry limestone ground, ancient dragon blood trees rise with wide crowns shaped like petrified umbrellas. The most unsettling detail sits beneath the bark, because when it is cut, the tree releases a thick red resin that looks like fresh blood. Local legend says this red color came from the blood of a sacred dragon, leaving Socotra with a strange tree species that still survives today. Lake Kaindy is one of the few places on Earth where a forest of century-old trees remains submerged underwater while staying largely preserved. The lake did not exist until a magnitude 8 earthquake in 1911 triggered a massive landslide that created a natural dam across the canyon. Its water has a distinctive turquoise color, and is clear enough to reveal depths of nearly 30 meters because of dissolved minerals and limestone from the landslide. Water temperatures rarely rise above 6 degrees Celsius, even during summer, creating natural conditions that greatly slow the decomposition of wood above the surface. The tree trunks appear as gray, dead poles, while the submerged sections are covered with green moss and algae. Located at an elevation of about 2,000 meters among isolated canyons and pine forests, Lake Kaindy can only be reached through rugged mountain roads. Just a quick pause here, explorers. If you are enjoying this journey with us, tap that like button, subscribe to Africa Uncovered so you never miss a story, and hit the bell so future mysteries land straight in your feed. Now back to the landforms. Imagine walking across the floor of an ancient ocean that evaporated 120 million years ago, where thousands of giant stone eggs lie scattered across the Mangistau steppe of Kazakhstan. In reality, they formed as minerals slowly accumulated around sediment cores. Yet these smooth spheres, some as large as a car, make the landscape look deliberately arranged. Several of these stone balls have cracked open over time, revealing inner cores with colors and textures completely different from their outer shells. This unusual feature makes them look like prehistoric cocoons that have been torn apart by an unseen force. As evening light spreads across the steppe, the shadows of the spheres stretch across the empty ground. Their vast distribution, enormous size, and nearly perfect shape have inspired countless theories, ranging from crashed UFOs to mysteries beyond Earth. Did you know that in the middle of the Sahara Desert, a giant eye seems to stare endlessly into the vast universe? The Richat structure is about 40 kilometers wide, so large that people standing on the ground can barely recognize its complete shape. For decades, scientists thought it was a meteor impact crater, but it is actually a geological dome pushed upward from deep beneath Earth's crust. More than 100 million years of wind and sandstorms eroded rock layers of different hardness, creating almost perfect concentric rings. This almost unnatural shape has inspired many theories, the most famous being the belief that it is either a replica or the buried remains of the legendary continent of Atlantis. Today, the Eye of the Sahara remains a prominent landmark for astronauts, and one of the most impressive geological mysteries right here in Africa. Next on our list, the Penitentes in the Andes stand in the thin air at 13,000 feet as a brutal maze of tens of thousands of crystal blades rising up to 16 feet high. Under harsh radiation and humidity close to zero, the snow and ice here do not melt into water, but sublimate directly into vapor. This process erodes the lower hollows faster, while the remaining ice spires keep sharpening and lean toward the path of the sun. Charles Darwin once struggled through this jagged field of daggers during his expedition in 1835. NASA has also detected similar methane ice structures on Pluto, proving that the same physical mechanism can create giant ice blades both on Earth and on a distant world. 300 meters beneath the Mexican desert, Earth hides a mysterious palace of death called the Naica Crystal Cave. Here, gypsum crystals weighing up to 121,000 pounds cross through each other like a glowing maze of daggers. Although it shines like a frozen world, this cave is actually a brutal furnace at 136 degrees Fahrenheit, where sweat can barely evaporate. The giant crystals took tens of thousands of years to grow inside groundwater heated by the magma chamber below. Scientists also found bacteria trapped inside fluid bubbles in the crystals that had survived for 50,000 years. Today, the cave has been permanently flooded again, sealing the entrance to one of the planet's most radiant crystal wonders. Beneath the quiet shadow of Le Morne, Brabant, the Mauritius underwater waterfall appears like a giant visual monster opening its mouth beneath the Indian Ocean. From above,
The sea seems torn apart by a dark abyss plunging nearly 13,000 feet deep, creating the illusion that it could swallow any ship passing by. This phenomenon appears off the southwestern coast of Mauritius, where a shallow continental shelf suddenly drops into an extremely deep underwater canyon. What looks like water pouring into the void is not water at all, but sand, mud, and sediment swept over the steep edge by ocean currents. The constant movement of this sediment makes the ocean look as if it is collapsing before your eyes. The dark water beneath the waterfall has also led generations of local fishermen to speak of a forbidden gateway where giant sea creatures are believed to hide. If there is a place on Earth that seems to mock gravity itself, it is the fairy chimneys on the Anatolian plateau of Turkey. Here, tens of thousands of rocks carry large caps on narrow pillars, forming fairy chimneys that look like an alien fossilized forest. They formed over millions of years as soft volcanic ash was eroded by wind and water, leaving hard basalt layers above them like protective roofs. Beneath this landscape lies a network of underground cities reaching depths of up to 279 feet, where tens of thousands of people once hid from invasions. Local people once believed that fairies used magic to create these giant chimneys. Stepping into this place, you may lose all sense of time and wonder whether you are standing among geological ruins or being silently watched by an underground kingdom. Located in Trinidad, Pitch Lake, known as the Dark Scar, covers nearly 99 acres and marks the largest natural asphalt lake ever known on Earth. Under the influence of tectonic faults, its surface constantly rises and sinks, forming a wrinkled and cracked crust that stays solid enough for people to walk across. Beneath that crust lies a pit, about 249 feet deep, filled with thick, sticky, and heavy black hydrocarbons. After rainfall, water cannot penetrate the asphalt and instead becomes trapped inside the cracks, creating pools up to 3 feet deep across the lake's surface. For more than a century, tens of millions of tons of asphalt have been extracted for road construction. Yet Pitch Lake still feels like a living entity, continuously pumped full of black tar from deep beneath Earth's crust and defying every human effort to drain it. Doong is the largest natural cave in the world, with a massive chamber wide enough to hold an entire Boeing aircraft. This scale was created as an underground river eroded the limestone mass over a long period, while also forming stalagmites and stalactites rising more than 60 meters high. When part of the cave ceiling collapsed, giant sinkholes opened and allowed sunlight to cut through the thick mist and shine directly onto the cave floor. That light, combined with moisture from the underground river, sustains an isolated primary forest where many tree canopies rise more than 30 meters high. Inside this enclosed space, water vapor continues to condense into clouds, drifting just beneath the limestone dome. Because the route inside is complex and the number of permitted visitors is limited, fewer people have gone deep into Doong than have climbed to the summit of Everest. The Chocolate Hills are a national geological monument of the Philippines, known for at least 1,268 almost perfectly symmetrical cone-shaped hills. Although they rise inland, the core of these hills formed from ancient coral and marine organisms that were lifted from the ocean floor by geological forces. Unlike many limestone landscapes that often contain hollow cave systems, more than 1,200 hills here are solid masses with almost no underground caves. Their surface has unusual growing conditions, rejecting most woody trees and allowing only a rough grass layer to cover the slopes. Their regular shapes once made many people suspect that they were ancient artificial structures. In the dry season, the grass turns chocolate brown, then can turn green again after only a few rains. Devil's Tower is the first national monument in the United States, famous for thousands of sharp, hexagonal magma columns that look like a structure created by an alien civilization. Scientists still cannot agree whether this formation is hardened, intrusive magma underground or the remaining core of a volcano whose outer layers were completely eroded away. Unlike ordinary pointed mountains, the summit is a flat plateau about the size of an American football field, standing 264 meters above the ground. On this isolated surface exists a small ecosystem with grass, cacti, rodents, and snakes that people below cannot see. In 1941, George Hopkins parachuted onto the summit and was trapped there for 6 days after his rescue rope failed. At the base of the tower, thousands of sacred prayer cloths from indigenous communities hang in the forest, and touching or photographing them closely is forbidden. On the summit of Kelimutu in Indonesia, an incredible phenomenon exists where 3 lakes sit close together but change color completely independently. They can shift from green, red, and black to white or brown without following any easily predictable cycle. The cause comes from complex oxidation-reduction reactions between volcanic gases rising from below and iron and sulfur dissolved in the lake water. For the local Leo people, this is a sacred site where the souls of the dead are divided into 3 separate lakes for elders, young people, and sinners. Between the Lake of the Young and the Lake of the Wicked, only a thin rock ridge forms a dangerous boundary between 2 worlds. The hydrological and geological phenomena here turned the mountain into a giant natural laboratory, attracting thousands of geologists from around the world to study it. Vilafranca Islet is an ancient volcanic crater about 4,000 years old, rising from the Atlantic Ocean and protected by strict visitor limits in the Azores. The visible island covers only about 6.2 hectares, but it is actually the top of an underwater volcanic mass reaching 87 hectares beneath the sea. At the center is a calm lagoon inside the core of the extinct volcano, with a bottom covered by large lava rocks instead of sea sand. The narrow channel linking the lagoon to the ocean looks natural, but it is believed to have been widened by people to shelter boats. During the day, many seabirds hide inside dark volcanic rock holes, then emerge and call together after nightfall. Beside the island, a 32-meter rock tower is a famous cliff diving point for Red Bull cliff diving. Dead Vlei is an unbelievably still clay pan where the empty landscape makes time seem trapped in the middle of the Namib desert. Enormous red dunes rise under a blue sky and create a strong visual contrast with the cracked white ground. The red-orange color of the sand formed through millions of years of iron oxidation, like rust spread across the entire terrain. In the center of the pan, camel thorn trees that died about 900 years ago still stand because the dry climate prevents decay. Their dark trunks against the white clay create a surreal scene, like the remains of a forest abandoned by time. Beneath this lifeless surface, spiders, beetles, and lizards still survive on rare fog droplets drifting inland from the Atlantic Ocean. Bisti de Nazin Wilderness is so ruined and surreal that the entire ground looks like a forgotten edge of Mars. This badland is a vast maze of lonely stone pillars, thin sandstone towers, and bands of earth stained in gray, black, and brown, like the ash of an ancient world. The most unbelievable fact is that this dry and lifeless place was once a rich tropical coastal swamp about 70 million years ago. After the sea withdrew, desert wind and long periods of rain eroded layers of sandstone, mud, and petrified wood, leaving behind a natural gallery of strange formations. The cracked ground also reveals petrified tree trunks and fossil traces from ancient dinosaur species. With no clear trails and no fixed signs, this place preserves the raw silence of a landscape carved directly by time. Scattered along Koi Koi Beach on New Zealand's South Island, the Moeraki boulders are round stones so strange that they look deliberately placed across the sand. Each boulder can reach about 2 meters in diameter, with a smooth surface and an almost perfect shape on a remote coastline. In reality, they are concretions that formed about 60 million years ago beneath the ocean floor, as minerals accumulated around a central core, much like a pearl forming inside an oyster. What still causes debate is that many boulders crack from the inside and spread outward, revealing fracture lines that remain difficult to explain. When they split open, they expose complex networks of crystallized minerals like giant stone honeycombs. Maori legend adds another layer of mystery by claiming these stones are fossilized food baskets that washed ashore after an ancient canoe wreck. Vulcan Point is a one-of-a-kind geological wonder in the Philippines, where natural layers fit inside one another like a giant Russian doll. Its position is mind-twisting because it is an island inside a lake on a volcanic island within the larger Taal Lake, and then part of Luzon Island itself. This rare landform formed from the continuous activity of Taal, one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the Philippines. Vulcan Point showed its resilience after the eruption in 2020, when the lake water evaporated and the vegetation was burned away, but the tiny island remained standing and turned green again. For centuries, local communities have both respected and feared this place as a sacred, living presence. The risk of collapse and dense toxic gas turn this tiny island into a forbidden zone that is almost impossible to reach. Shilin stone forest is a limestone forest so sharp that the ground looks like millions of stone spears pointing straight into the sky. This wonder began about 200 million years ago when coral remains and marine shells were compressed beneath an ancient ocean floor, and then the limestone was lifted above the sea. Millions of years of light, acidic rain did not smooth it into flat ground, but carved it into sharp towers, rising from 40 to more than 100 meters. The dense stone formations create a natural maze that is almost impossible to cross by ordinary movement. Because the surface is extremely sharp and the cracks are very deep, many explorers must use iron ladders, steel cables, and suspended roots to move between the rock walls. Beneath Shilin lies a dark cave network, linked to local stories about people entering the maze and never returning. Leaving the dry mainland behind and dropping into Iceland's freezing water, you reach Silfra, where Earth appears to tear open its own crust. This is a divergent boundary between the two giant tectonic plates of North America and Eurasia, slowly widening by about 0.8 inches each year. This fissure did not exist from the beginning of Earth, but opened after powerful earthquakes linked to tectonic movement in 1789. Thanks to natural filtration through lava rock over decades, the water at Silfra reaches a rare level of purity on the planet. The area is almost devoid of life, with only thin layers of algae clinging to the rocks and appearing sparsely throughout the crystal-clear water. Here, visibility beyond 328 feet allows divers to see through the open gap located exactly between two continents, floating inside Earth's exposed fracture. And forgive me a moment while I share a quick message from our sponsors. Lake Natron in Tanzania is a toxic trap that keeps a massive wildlife population from the risk of extinction. It is the breeding sanctuary for about 2.5 million lesser flamingos, equal to 75% of the global population. They have special horn-like scales on their legs, allowing their bodies to withstand hot water with extremely high alkalinity. This same deadly environment causes extreme salt-loving bacteria to explode in growth, turning the lake surface bright red or deep pink. Right beside the lake stands the only active volcano on Earth that erupts the coldest black lava in the world. When the drier season evaporates the water, the lake, stretching up to 35 miles, reveals vast, cracked salt plates, like the surface of a dead planet, with an almost unbelievable, surreal beauty. Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland appears like a stone structure left by an alien civilization on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. Nearly 40,000 hexagonal basalt columns fit together with strange precision, forming steps that stretch from the mainland and slowly descend into the sea. When the tide recedes, the rock surface emerges like a fossilized symphony frozen since prehistoric time. This unnatural structure is the trace of volcanic eruptions around 50 million years ago, when lava cooled and cracked into evenly shaped geometric blocks. That precision created the legend of the giant Finn McCool, who built a stone causeway across the sea to confront an enemy from Scotland. The surrounding waters also swallowed the Girona warship in 1588, keeping Spanish treasure beneath the sea for nearly 400 years. Rising above the mist-covered Amazon forests, Mount Roraima appears like a gigantic prehistoric fortress, isolated from the outside world. Located at the meeting point of Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana, the mountain has a strange, flat summit that looks as if a colossal blade sliced across the sky. Standing about 2,810 meters high, with sheer cliffs piercing through the clouds, it is a remnant of the Guyana Shield, an ancient geological structure formed more than 2 billion years ago. Long isolation has created a separate ecosystem, with carnivorous pitcher plants and small frog species found nowhere else. The humid climate on the summit creates waterfalls that plunge from the cliff edge and quickly dissolve into white clouds. Even today, mysterious light formations reported on this plateau remain a phenomenon without a clear explanation. And that is where we leave today's journey, explorers. 30 landforms, 30 stories carved into the planet we live on, and still so many mysteries left to walk into. If this video made you stop and think for even a second, hit that like button to help us reach more curious minds. Subscribe to Africa Uncovered if you have not already, and ring the bell so the next mystery does not slip past you. Drop your favorite landform in the comments below. We read every single one. Share this with a friend who loves the strange side of our world, and we will see you in the next story. Stay curious, stay watching, and keep uncovering Africa and the wonders beyond it.